700 years before Jesus was crucified, a prophet described a man who would be despised, rejected, wounded for crimes he never committed, and silent while he was being killed. Then Isaiah wrote something even stranger. This man would die and somehow still live. How could a dead man see his future? And why would his suffering have anything to do with everyone else's sin? His name was Isaiah. He never met the one he's describing, never heard his voice, and yet in one chapter he describes the suffering of this servant with details that would later seem eerily familiar. Not a king coming to conquer, not a warrior coming to win, someone coming to suffer. Why would God send a Messiah who loses before he ever wins? Isaiah starts with rejection. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. Not someone who suffered once, someone marked by it. People saw him and turned away. Then the passage does something unexpected. It stops describing him and starts describing you. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The wounds are his. The reason for the wounds is yours. He is driven toward death, and he says nothing in his own defense. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Then he's gone, cut off out of the land of the living. Not wounded, not punished, removed completely, but even his burial is strange. He made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death. Executed like a criminal, buried in a rich man's tomb, and then the reason surfaces. The Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. One man, everyone else's weight. Centuries later, Jesus is arrested in Jerusalem. Before his accusers, he remains largely silent, just as Isaiah had described. He's crucified between two criminals, numbered among the guilty the way Isaiah said the servant would be. After he heals a crowd of sick and suffering people, one of his own followers reaches back 7 centuries for the only words that explain it. He carried what he was healing. A wealthy man asks for his body after the execution and buries him in his own tomb. A criminal's death, a rich man's grave. The exact detail Isaiah wrote down first, and then there's the moment that seals it. A foreign official is riding home in his chariot, reading this very passage out loud, and he can't understand it. A stranger walks up and asks him one question. Do you understand what you're reading? The official says he can't, not unless someone explains it to him. Philip begins with that very passage and tells him about Jesus. By the end of that road, the man is asking to be baptized. Here's what most people miss. It's not just that Isaiah predicted someone would suffer. Plenty of people suffer. It's who he was suffering for. The Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. Not his own sin, not a punishment he earned. Everyone else's failure placed onto one person who didn't fail. That's not a side detail in the passage. That's the entire passage. Isaiah presents sin as something God does not simply ignore. It has to be dealt with. And centuries before Jesus was crucified, Isaiah described a servant who would bear the sins of others. That's why the early church didn't read Isaiah 53 as poetry. They read it as the moment everything made sense. The death that should have ended their faith became the proof of it. Isaiah never lived to see it happen. Yet 7 centuries earlier, he had written about a servant who would be rejected, wounded, killed, and somehow live beyond death. If this is the first time you've really seen what that chapter says, you're not the only one. People have been reading it for 2,500 years and still stopping at the same verse. If this opens something up for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep going deeper into what Scripture actually says, subscribe. We'll be here.